The day the CEO's daughter stopped believing in miracles began like any other, quiet, sterile, and heavy with the hum of machines that had long replaced hope. Sunlight filtered weakly through the tall glass windows of the private rehabilitation center, touching the polished floors but never quite reaching the bed where the young girl lay motionless. She had once been the kind of child who ran ahead of everyone, laughter echoing before her footsteps could catch up. Now, she stared at the ceiling, counting cracks and shadows, trapped in a body that refused to listen. The doctors had used careful words and practiced sympathy, but the truth had settled like a weight on everyone's chest. She was paralyzed, and no one knew if she would ever walk again. Power, money, and influence had opened every door for her family, except the one that mattered most. If you believe that kindness can change lives and that second chances still exist in this world, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us why compassion still matters. Her father, the CEO, stood at the top of his empire, a man whose name moved markets and whose decisions shaped thousands of lives. Yet inside that immaculate room, he was nothing more than a helpless parent. He had brought in the best specialists from around the world, funded experimental treatments, and turned his private jet into a bridge between continents in search of a cure. Every new attempt began with cautious optimism and ended in the same quiet devastation. He wore his tailored suits like armor, but beneath them was a man unraveling, sleeping in hospital chairs, staring at medical charts long after visiting hours ended. The guilt gnawed at him relentlessly, guilt for the day of the accident, for not being there, for believing that success could protect his family from tragedy. His daughter watched him too, seeing the cracks he tried so hard to hide, and that hurt almost as much as her own condition. The girl's days blended into one another, marked by therapy sessions that pushed her to exhaustion and nights filled with silent tears she refused to let anyone see. She felt like a burden, a problem to be solved, a broken thing everyone tiptoed around. Friends had slowly stopped visiting, unsure of what to say or how to act. Even hope began to feel dangerous, because every time she let herself believe, the fall back into disappointment hurt more than the numbness. The room became her entire world, and she learned every sound, the soft roll of wheels in the hallway, the distant laughter of people whose lives were still moving forward, the sighs of nurses who tried their best but had learned not to promise miracles. Then, one afternoon, everything shifted in the smallest, quietest way. A man walked into the rehabilitation center carrying nothing but a worn backpack and the weight of his own past. He was a single father, his face lined not with age but with responsibility. Life had taught him hard lessons early, how to stretch a paycheck, how to be both mother and father, how to smile for a child even when the world felt unbearably heavy. He was there because his son was receiving treatment in the same facility, recovering from an injury that had turned their lives upside down months earlier. This man knew hospital corridors like old roads, knew the smell of antiseptic and the way hope flickered and faded in places like this. He noticed the girl long before he knew who she was. He saw her stare, empty and distant, as therapists spoke around her rather than to her. He recognized that look instantly, the look of someone who had been told, gently but firmly, not to expect too much. It was the same look his son had worn when doctors said recovery would be slow, uncertain, maybe incomplete. The single dad had learned something during those months of fear and waiting. Sometimes, healing started not with medicine, but with someone refusing to give up on you. The CEO noticed the man too, though at first only as another visitor passing through. But there was something different about him. He didn't rush, didn't avert his eyes, didn't carry the stiffness of people afraid to say the wrong thing. He spoke to nurses with respect, helped an elderly patient pick up dropped papers, and smiled at the girl not with pity but with quiet understanding. It unsettled the CEO in a way he couldn't explain. In a world where everyone either feared him or wanted something from him, this man seemed untouched by status, moving through the space with simple humanity. Over time, their paths crossed more often. A nod in the hallway. A brief exchange about the weather. Small moments that slowly built into familiarity. The single dad never asked who the CEO was, never commented on the expensive equipment or the private room. He asked about the girl instead, about what she liked before the accident, about whether she enjoyed music, about what made her laugh. These questions caught the CEO off guard. Most people focused on diagnoses and timelines, not on who his daughter had been before her world stopped. The girl listened quietly whenever the man was nearby. She noticed how he spoke to his son, encouraging without pressure, celebrating the smallest improvements as if they were victories worth shouting about. She felt something stir inside her, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Not hope exactly, but curiosity. The man seemed to believe in progress measured in inches, not miracles. And for the first time, that felt safe. One day, the single dad asked permission to help during a therapy session. He had no medical degree, no fancy credentials, only experience earned through exhaustion and love. The therapists hesitated, the CEO bristled, but something in the man's calm confidence softened the room. He didn't promise results. He didn't claim to know better. He simply offered support, patience, and time. Reluctantly, they allowed it. What followed wasn't dramatic. There were no sudden movements, no triumphant breakthroughs. There was only persistence. The man sat with the girl during exercises, encouraging her to focus not on what she couldn't do, but on what she could still feel. He reminded her that progress wasn't about standing up tomorrow, but about showing up today. When she failed, he didn't flinch. When she cried, he didn't rush to fix it. He let her be angry, tired, afraid, and then gently guided her back to trying again. Days turned into weeks, and something began to change. The girl started engaging more, pushing herself just a little further each time. Therapists noticed her improved focus. Nurses saw her smile more often. The CEO watched all of this with cautious disbelief, torn between gratitude and fear of disappointment. He had seen progress before, only to watch it vanish. But this felt different. This wasn't driven by cutting-edge technology or elite specialists. It was driven by consistency, by someone who refused to see his daughter as a lost cause. The single dad never asked for anything in return. He balanced his time carefully, always making sure his own son came first. When the CEO finally asked why he was doing all this, the man simply shared his story. He spoke of nights spent worrying, of moments when he felt invisible and powerless, of the realization that hope was a muscle that needed exercise. Helping the girl helped him too. It reminded him why he kept going, why he believed that showing up mattered even when outcomes were uncertain. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the girl began to regain small sensations. A twitch of a toe. A tightening of a muscle. These were things doctors had hoped for but stopped expecting. Each small change sent ripples through the center. The CEO found himself holding his breath during updates, afraid to believe but unable to ignore the evidence. For the first time since the accident, he allowed himself to imagine a future that wasn't defined by limitations. The breakthrough came quietly, without an audience. During a routine session, the girl managed to lift her leg just enough to surprise herself. It wasn't graceful. It wasn't strong. But it was real. Tears streamed down her face, not from pain, but from the overwhelming realization that her body hadn't completely abandoned her. The single dad celebrated the moment with restrained joy, grounding her in the reality that this was a step, not the finish line. Word spread quickly. Specialists re-evaluated her condition. Therapy plans were adjusted. Momentum built. The girl worked harder than ever, fueled not by pressure, but by belief. She began to reclaim pieces of herself she thought were gone forever. The CEO watched his daughter come back to life, bit by bit, and something inside him healed too. He realized that despite all his wealth, it was a stranger's kindness that had cracked open the door he couldn't force his way through. Near the end of this journey, as the girl took her first assisted steps between parallel bars, the room filled with quiet awe. There were no speeches, no applause, just the sound of effort and determination. The CEO stood back, tears in his eyes, understanding that this moment belonged not to him, but to his daughter, and to the man who had believed when believing felt risky. Before this story reaches its final moments, take a second to comment below and share what this journey made you feel. Your words might be the encouragement someone else needs today. The single dad eventually faded back into his own life, returning to work, school runs, and the daily grind of parenthood. He never sought recognition, never shared the story beyond those walls. But his impact lingered. The girl continued to improve, each milestone a testament to resilience and human connection. The CEO made changes too, using his influence to support rehabilitation programs that focused not just on treatment, but on emotional support and community. And now, as this story comes to a close, if it touched your heart even a little, if it reminded you that kindness from an unexpected place can change everything, please like, comment, and share this video. Subscribe to the channel so we can keep telling stories that restore faith in humanity. Sometimes, all it takes is one person walking in and saying they are willing to help, and an entire life can begin to move again.